Donald Trump isn't just putting taxes on goods from countries like Canada, Mexico, and China. He's actually spreading these taxes around the globe. It's like a huge storm that's hitting everyone. This week, Trump said he's going to put even more taxes, called tariffs, on products coming from Europe. But he's not stopping there. He's doing the same thing to countries all around the Asia-Pacific region, even those that usually get along really well with America. Two countries affected by this situation are Japan and South Korea. Both are very important trade friends with the US, but they're reacting differently. Japan says, if you put tariffs on us, we'll just do the same to you. South Korea doesn't like this idea at all. They're trying super hard to avoid getting hit badly, especially when it comes to things like cars and steel. So, what's South Korea doing about this? They're talking a lot with US officials, hoping they can convince them not to charge these extra tariffs. Basically, they're asking very nicely, doing everything they can think of to keep their goods flowing freely into America. But here's something interesting. At the same time, South Korea is working more closely with Canada. They're trading more things like oil and steel. Could they be trying to show America that they're not stuck? That they have other friends they can turn to if America doesn't play nice? Meanwhile, the South Korean minister has been rushing around, visiting Washington and trying to make a deal. He's asking Trump and his team to skip the tariffs, especially the huge 25% taxes on steel and some other important products. Now everyone's wondering, is South Korea quietly telling the US, hey, look, we've got backup plans? And if that's what they're doing, will it work? Will these new friendships with Canada and other countries be enough to protect South Korea's economy? Remember, last year Trump kept talking about how unfair trade was between South Korea and America. He pointed out that the US was buying way more stuff from South Korea than South Korea was buying from the US. He even mentioned specific things like cars, steel, and electronics as areas where America needed better deals. South Korean companies had a big problem on their hands, and it made them very worried. Here's why. South Korea sells a lot of products to the United States. America buys phones, cars, TVs, and even steel from South Korea, making it one of South Korea's most important trading partners. And that's not all. Europe is another huge customer for South Korea. Between America and Europe, nearly half of everything South Korea sells overseas goes to these two markets. Imagine if something went wrong with these relationships. It would be like losing half your customers overnight. Pretty scary, right? So why exactly were the Korean companies feeling nervous? Well, the United States decided it wanted to charge extra money, called tariffs, on many of the products South Korea sells. The American government thought Korean companies were getting too strong and selling too much in the US, making it hard for American businesses to compete. The US president at that time, Donald Trump, said Korean products were making life tough for American factories. So he decided that charging tariffs would balance things out. This caught the South Koreans completely off guard because, until then, they felt safe under an agreement called KORUS, which protected trade between the two countries. South Korea thought things would always be smooth and predictable, so when the US suddenly demanded more money, it was like getting caught in a rainstorm without an umbrella. South Korean companies quickly took action. Some companies planned to build more factories in America, hoping that making products locally would help them avoid paying the tariffs. Others said they were willing to pay the extra cost themselves, even though they didn't like it one bit. But deep down, what South Korea really wanted was for America to change its mind and remove the tariffs completely. That way, they wouldn't lose money or customers. This became so important that South Korea's trade minister actually traveled to Washington, D.C. to ask American leaders face-to-face to give South Korea a break. Some newspapers wrote dramatic headlines saying things like, "South Korea is practically begging America for mercy." It sounded pretty extreme, right? But was South Korea really panicking, or were people exaggerating? One thing was clear though. South Korea really wanted these tariffs to disappear, especially the tariffs on steel and aluminum, because those were hurting the most. South Korean steel companies are in a tough spot right now. They've managed to get a small break before, but they're still pushing for more. Why? Because a lot of the steel made in South Korea is sold to customers in the United States. If America charges extra money, called tariffs, it could mean losing a big chunk of their business. But here's the thing. These huge Korean steelmakers don't want to leave the US market. Instead, they're working extra hard behind the scenes, talking directly to powerful people in America to make sure their products keep flowing smoothly. You might wonder why companies aren't just leaving this to their government. Well, there's a bit of drama going on in Korean politics right now, making things messy and uncertain. This uncertainty has made the companies think, hey, if our government can't handle this alone, maybe we should step up ourselves and talk directly to America. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting. South Korea is starting to look at Canada as another possible solution to this problem. Canada has lots of oil, metals, and other resources that South Korea needs, so they're becoming better friends. The idea is simple. If America makes trade too expensive, why not use Canada as a gateway into the North American market instead? This new friendship raises an important question. Is South Korea quietly planning to go around the United States by trading more with Canada? Nobody official has come out to say that's true, so we don't know for sure yet. But it's definitely getting people thinking, especially since the US government sees things differently. In fact, some people in the Trump administration feel strongly that America does a lot for South Korea, especially when it comes to protection and security. America has thousands of soldiers stationed in South Korea, keeping them safe. Because of that, these American leaders think it's only fair that South Korea should give America better trade deals. They argue that South Korea's steel industry actually makes too much steel. So much, in fact, that they're sending steel into America at really low prices, which makes it hard for American steelmakers to compete. America's steel companies aren't happy right now. They feel like they're losing money because steel from other countries, especially South Korea, is cheaper and easier to buy. But South Korea sees things differently. They say their steel is affordable because they use better machines, smarter technology, and can produce steel faster than anyone else. They're not trying to hurt American companies on purpose. Now, South Korea's trade minister has traveled to Washington with one big mission. He wants to meet someone named Lutnick, who's very important to President Trump's trade decisions. His plan is simple. Offer something good in exchange for the tariffs being dropped. For example, he might say, if you stop charging us extra money, we'll buy more oil and gas from America. Or maybe we'll buy more corn and wheat from American farmers. We could even team up to make cars together, helping both countries make money. Basically, South Korea is trying to say, if we help America a little bit, maybe they'll help us by removing those tariffs. Some newspapers said South Korea was begging for help, but that's not quite fair. What they're really doing is gently trying to convince America by promising something in return. Still, Korean news channels admit this meeting is super important because South Korea doesn't have many strong moves left to play. Why? Because South Korea can't afford to make America angry. The United States isn't just a trade partner, it's also South Korea's strongest ally in protecting itself from North Korea. America has thousands of soldiers stationed in South Korea to help keep things safe. Losing America as a friend could mean serious trouble if North Korea ever became a real threat again. So, even though South Korea is frustrated, they can't just say, fine, we'll punish America back, because their market is small compared to America's. Fighting back wouldn't help them, it would just hurt their economy even more. Back home in South Korea, this is causing arguments between politicians. Some say the country should find new friends and trade partners so it doesn't rely so much on America. Others think that's a risky idea and insist the only way forward is careful talks and smart diplomacy to calm things down. Companies in South Korea are getting tired of waiting around. They want this whole tariff mess sorted out fast, so they've decided not to rely just on their government anymore. Instead, some companies have started talking directly to people in the US government, hoping their own connections might help fix things faster. People were surprised when they heard companies were skipping over their government to handle this themselves. Everyone started talking about it. After all, businesses usually let the government handle big trade issues. But now they're taking matters into their own hands. Meanwhile, something interesting is happening between South Korea and Canada. South Korea normally buys a lot of oil from the Middle East, but lately they're thinking about getting more oil from Canada. Why Canada? Because Canada has huge amounts of oil, almost as much as America, and it's closer than the Middle East. This way, South Korea doesn't have to rely only on Middle Eastern countries, and they get some protection in case America puts more pressure on them. Canada is also trying to be careful around the United States. They're close trade partners with America, but sometimes America pushes them hard too, especially on steel and cars. By working closely with South Korea, Canada can show they're not just depending on America, giving them a bit more room to breathe. South Korea sees Canada as an open door into the North American market. Korean steel companies wonder, if America charges high tariffs directly, can we sell steel through Canada instead? It's not easy though. Trade can get tricky really fast. You see, Canada has its own trade issues with America, especially with steel tariffs. But Canada is more relaxed and easier to talk to. They prefer open trade, which gives Korean companies hope that maybe they could slip into America through the Canadian backdoor. America, however, is paying close attention. US officials might wonder, why are Canada and Korea suddenly such close friends? Are they trying to send America a message? But Canada would probably reply, hey, we're just making smart business moves for ourselves. We're not trying to upset anyone. Right now, America's trade rules under President Trump are making a lot of different countries nervous. The US isn't just dealing with one or two nations. It's spreading out tariffs and tough trade rules all over the globe. Because of this, some people wonder if America might get worried when they notice Canada and South Korea suddenly becoming closer friends. Would the US see it as a sneaky move, like they're secretly teaming up against America? When you step back and look at what's going on, things become pretty interesting. Trump's trade rules are causing countries everywhere to react and look for new friends and partners. America wants better deals for itself, but this is creating a tricky puzzle for other countries. One country that feels stuck right in the middle of this is South Korea. They're worried because they might have to agree to some things they really don't want to. They could end up losing money or even customers. This pressure is making South Korea ask themselves, should we find some other countries to trade with just in case things don't work out with America? That's exactly where Canada comes in. Lately, South Korea and Canada have been talking more and trading more. It seems like South Korea is quietly saying, maybe Canada could be our backup plan. People who study money and trade often like to ask the big question, who actually wins when trade arguments happen? Usually they agree that no one wins completely. Even if South Korea starts selling more to Canada, that still might not be enough if they lose America. Right now, South Korea is hoping they can come up with a good deal. If they do, Korean companies will finally relax and stop worrying so much. America would benefit too. They'd get some new deals in return, and everyone could avoid a big fight. But what if things don't work out and America sticks to these tough rules? That would be terrible news for Korean businesses. Losing access to the huge American market would hit the Korean economy hard, even if they do manage to find new trade partners elsewhere. That's why many people in Korea say America is just too important. They believe losing America would hurt badly, like taking away the main lifeline of the economy. Big companies like Samsung and Hyundai depend heavily on American customers to keep going, so losing access would be really painful. Politics makes this situation even more complicated for South Korea. The government changes often, and each new leader has to figure out how to handle North Korea. Sometimes they talk things out, sometimes they add pressure, and sometimes they ask America to help them more. Now, with these trade troubles added on top, everything feels even trickier. In South Korea, some people feel frustrated because they think their country is always saying yes to America. They don't like the idea of always agreeing with what America wants because it makes them feel less independent and strong. This feeling can cause arguments among people and put the government in a difficult position. Now let's look back at Canada for a minute. Canada is quietly becoming closer friends with South Korea, and some people think this is very smart. Canada has plenty of things that Korea needs, like oil, natural gas, and metals. Working together could mean South Korea doesn't always have to rely on America or the Middle East for these important resources. Imagine this. Canada and South Korea build a new trading friendship. They trade oil, metals, and maybe other goods too. If this works out, it could open brand new trade routes between Canada, Korea, and other countries in Asia. That would be great because it gives everyone more choices and more ways to get the things they need. But America's tariffs, extra fees on goods, make this idea tricky. America doesn't love the thought of Korea getting close to Canada instead of trading directly with them. They worry that this new friendship might leave America out. South Korea probably doesn't want to upset America, but they're caught in a tough spot. They're stuck between two big problems: America's tough trade rules and trying to keep their economy healthy. They know America is important for their safety because of issues with North Korea. Yet, they also know they can't just sit around and wait for America to be nicer. Korea's idea of trading more with Canada could be a smart way of protecting itself. If Canada and Korea trade more, it could totally change how business is done between Asia and North America. Canada has been blessed with natural riches like oil and metals, and Korea is really good at making things people love, like cars, electronics, and even ships. Working together could help both countries grow stronger. Right now, officials from Korea are meeting in Washington to figure out how to solve the trade issues. They are hoping to convince America by offering some good deals, like buying more American products or changing rules to help American companies. The negotiations are complicated, and both sides are carefully figuring out what they'll gain and what they'll give up. No one really knows who will win or lose yet. If you found this video interesting, be sure to hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe.